Wow, how inspiring to be here with all of you today. Thank you for coming. My name is Sarah, and I'm just a mom, and I'm a little nervous, so bear with me.
Sarah.
I've been asked to tell our story, and I'm proud to tell our story, and I've learned in the past couple of years how powerful storytelling is. And thanks to a lot of people telling their stories before me, I can tell you ours. My twins are 12 years old. Both of them were assigned female at birth. When they were 2.5, my husband was deployed in Iraq. Yep, we're a military family. I noticed then that Jay was really having a hard time, really struggling, felt really uncomfortable and just frustrated, and just something was off. And I chalked it up to the deployment, that our house was a little disrupted. My husband was gone for a long time. But as the years went on, I noticed a very distinct difference between my twins and how they responded to things. And it was really pronounced. So when Jay was 5 years old, I sought help from a professional. We went to therapy, we went to family therapy and individual therapy. We tried everything. But with each year that went by, Jay got more frustrated, more angry, got really sad, and started saying things like, "This life is too hard. I can't live like this anymore." He would say, "No one understands me." And those words coming out of my baby's mouth at 8, 9, 10 years old was horrifying. I'm a survivor of a sibling suicide, and I thought that's the track I was going down. Nothing was working. When Jay was about 9 or 10, he started experimenting with hair, cutting it short, taking earrings out, putting them in, wearing more gender-neutral clothing, and we were fine with that. We thought, we have a tomboy, and we were fine with that. So in May of 2016, we are at church, we are Unitarian Universalists, and there was a teenage boy storytelling. He told us his story of him being transgender and how his parents were not supportive, but how he found safety in our church and at school. And it struck me as he was talking, and I thought, maybe Jay is transgender. So when we were walking home from church, I talked to the kids about what it meant to be transgender, what I thought it meant at that point. And I asked Jay if he thought he was transgender. He said, "Nope, I'm a girl." I floated the idea to his therapist, who had been seeing him for 4 years. The therapist said, "No, not transgender, not gay. You're off track." So we kept plugging along. A couple months later, on July 28, 2016, I put the kids to bed and started to watch the Democratic National Convention. Jay came downstairs and uncharacteristically got out of bed. I know, my kids don't get out of bed. But they don't. So he did that night and asked me to rub his back, and I was happy to do it. Shortly after, Sarah McBride came on. Whoops. And started her speech. And I made sure Jay was listening. And I told him, "Look, this woman is making history. She's the first transgender American to speak at a national convention. We've had a black president, and what I thought, we were going to have a female president." And I said, "You can be anything you want to be. Look at these people paving the way and making history." And about 15 minutes later, he nestled his head on my shoulder. You know how kids do when they don't want to look at you in the eye. And he said, "I want to be known as a boy." I knew that very instant that was the missing puzzle piece to this kid's happiness. There was no question in my mind. I asked him how long he knew this about himself, and he said, "For as long as I can remember." I then asked him, why didn't you tell us? Why we've been working all these years trying to find your happiness and trying to find some answers. And this is really hard for me to admit in front of all you people that I don't know, but what my kid said to me, he said, and I'm shaking, he said, "I thought if I told you, you and Dad wouldn't love me anymore." That was hard to hear. It was hard to hear that my kid wasn't the gender I had been raising him to be. But it was devastating to learn that he thought that we could not love him because of who he was. We love him very much. We changed his name and pronouns 10 days later so he could start 5th grade as the boy we know him to be. So even with all that love and all the support that we were giving him, he still couldn't tell us because he was afraid. He was afraid of rejection, bullying, and just generally not being accepted by his community. He finally told me because it was just too painful to keep it a secret any longer. He was really at a breaking point. He knew at a very early age that there is hate in this world, that it's not always safe for kids like him. He knows that there are people like Jeff Matier who try to shame him because he's transgender. He knows that there are people who use their position and power to discriminate against marginalized people. My son suffered for years living a life that was not authentic because he knew that there are people out there willing to strip him of his rights. People who will bully him and deny him equality in our schools, churches, public places, and in the judicial system. No child should experience this type of hate, fear, or discrimination. My son is not evidence of how Satan's plan is working. And let me be clear, no child is. Woo! 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 Jeff Matier wants to invoke religion into his agenda, but he is missing the important point here, and that is, we are all made in God's image, all of us. I'm a dedicated mom who loves her children fiercely and unconditionally. My son is now a happy, although cautious boy who knows he is different, but he knows that his parents will fight to ensure that all transgender kids are supported, accepted, and treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. Jeff Matier should be ashamed of himself for the many hurtful and cruel things he has said about the LGBTQ community. Not only is he trying to hurt our transgender kids, he is threatening to hurt their allies, specifically their siblings and parents, my family and your family. But we will not stand for it. It is obvious to all of us that Jeff Matier cannot be impartial in any case involving LGBTQ people. He has made this clear through his words and his actions. If he does not withdraw his nomination, we must push back and demand that he does not get confirmed. We owe it to the LGBT community and to all of the kids who are struggling to find their voices and words. We will continue to fight until Jeff Matier and others like him do not have a platform in which to discriminate against and harm our children. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to tell our story and for helping us